On page 443, the author begins to describe the fact that some research has been done to evaluate how young children are able to derive conversational inferences. Oftentimes, parents speak to their children in ways that make inferences, or that make, sorry, I keep using these words wrong, but that make implications to the child, but that the child can't pick up on the inferences. So the child, for instance, might ask if they could have a cookie. An adult might respond, "We're having lunch in a few minutes," or "You didn't eat all of your dinner." And the adult thinks that the question is answered, but the child doesn't always have the ability to infer from that the intended implication that, for instance, in the latter case, you can only have a cookie after dinner if you ate all of your dinner. So a child might persist in asking again, can I have a cookie? And the adult will, the example here is that the adult might say something like, "I already told you the answer is no." But really, in fact, the parent didn't say that, and the no is implied. In order for a child to pick up on that implication, they have to be able to draw these inferences. So what age can children draw these inferences? Some research suggested that even like 11-year-old children aren't very good at drawing inferences. The example that suggested that was a study that showed that asked adults to answer the true or false question, "Some giraffes have long necks." Adults say that's false because all giraffes have long necks. And the scalar implicature from box 11.3 suggests that by using the word some, we are implying that some but not all giraffes have long necks. Is that technically true? Yes, but we're implying something that isn't intended to be implied. And so adults will answer that that's false, but children, even up at 11 years old, will often say that that's a true statement. Some giraffes have long necks because they aren't getting the implication. But other research has suggested that when the tasks are made a little bit easier, more applied and less abstract, that young children, even 3 years old, can draw inferences from what's being said. For instance, this study by Schultz had some children talking to a puppet, and the children were supposed to decide if the puppet was going to eat cereal or a breakfast roll for breakfast. And if the child asked, "Do you want cereal or a roll?" then the puppet might say, "The milk is all gone." That would be implying that I want the breakfast roll, not the cereal, because if I have the cereal, there's no milk. It's, I don't want cereal without milk. Most 3-year-olds were able to understand that that was what the puppet was implying, suggesting perhaps these kids do have some ability to infer from meaning, but maybe it's only in very applied settings and not abstract settings. One of the reasons why it may be that children don't have this strong ability in the same way that adults do is detailed in the next section on page 444. There's two meanings when given a statement like "some tuna are fish" or "some giraffes have long neck" that could be taken from that. One is the semantic meaning and one is the pragmatic meaning. The semantic meaning is what's directly said, what's encoded only in the words. The pragmatic meaning is a more practical level. What is really being implied here? So in the statement "some tuna are fish," the semantic meaning is technically some of the tuna are fish. Some may mean more than one. It may mean it may mean more than zero. It may mean up to all. Right? Technically, that is true. The semantic meaning is, given a semantic meaning, we would say yes, that's true. Given a pragmatic interpretation, we might say, that's false because we're implying wrongfully that some tuna are also not fish. So, given a statement and its semantic meaning and pragmatic meaning, we might be able to interpret it more than one way. One study illustrated in figure 11.5 suggested that it takes a lot of cognitive resources to infer the pragmatic meaning from a statement. The semantic meaning comes pretty easily, but the pragmatic meaning is more difficult. The way that they analyzed this was, as you see in panel A, that on a computer screen, some grid was filled in with either an easy pattern to remember or a difficult pattern to remember. After they saw this either easy or difficult pattern, they were presented with some statement that was supposed to be said, that they were supposed to say is true or it's false. And then they had to, on the third part of that task, after they had answered the true-false question, then they had to fill in where the dots were in the grid. If it was a more difficult dot grid format, then people made more mistakes on the true-false test right before. So essentially, if their cognitive resources are being taxed, then they're more likely to infer only the semantic meaning, not the pragmatic meaning. They're only going to say, yes, indeed, some tuna are fish, technically that is true. Because inferring from that the pragmatic meaning also just takes too many cognitive resources, more than they can dedicate, because they already are working on this difficult memory task. Given that this requires a great cognitive load, that's one reason we can see that children may have difficulty with inferring from speech the things that are intended to be implied. It says also here in the text that that we can use these conversational inferences to resolve ambiguity. In box 11.4, it describes the fact that if we have in panel A one glass and one pitcher, and an individual says pick up the tall glass, it's difficult to resolve internally whether that pitcher is the tall glass or whether the glass is the tall glass, because we don't know what the person is intending. We try to use our conversational inference to look at the to look at the context, and we make some kind of conclusion about that, but it's difficult for us unless we know that the person giving the instructions has some deficit in their ability in their social skills or their linguistic skills or something like that. They have some impairment, and then we look at the information in panel A. We look at the situation in panel A, and given the instructions pick up the tall glass, then we would just pick up the tall pitcher. So then we get on to the next section on page 447. I'll talk about it in the next recording.